Hi everybody, this is Tasso from Role Model U, and today we're going to tackle problems. Problems, everybody has them, nobody wants them. See, when I was younger, my father used to tell me, Tasso, you're creating problems where there are none. And I was saying, Dad, what does that mean? I don't get it, and I never understood it. I never understood what it meant until today. So, well, not today, but you get the point. So, it is true. When I reflect back, I was that kind of person that was over-amplifying and over-exaggerating problems. And I grew out of this along the way. And I thought that maybe there's other people out there that might want to hear a couple of thoughts and insights that I had along the way that helped me overcome these problems. Now, many of you will have come across the saying that the problem is not the problem, it's your attitude about the problem. And that puzzled me as well. I thought, what does that mean? Does it mean that there are really no problems, that we make them up? That we generate them like my dad was telling me that I was doing? And how would we define a problem? Is a problem something that is common, like a struggle that is common to many people, like a war? A war is a problem? Because war is not a problem to everyone. See, there's people who do billions and trillions of profit out of war. Or for instance, if there's a health issue and the government tries to implement a health plan, this is not a big problem for people because people don't even know the disease exists. So it's a problem for the government. So what is this all about? It really puzzled me. And then after a lot of thinking, I came up with a couple of thoughts and ideas about problems that I feel are necessary to understand before we even attempt to solve them. So I wanted to share these three things with you and see if it's helpful. Number one, a problem is not a problem until you call it a problem. See, this is a very, very big thing because by naming something, you define it. I mean, look back at your childhood days. I mean, if you got a nickname in school, how long did that stick? That stick forever. We have as humans an immense capacity of naming things, and this is by naming something, we really put it in a box, and it is already defined and clear in its structure. And I will give you another example. So, for instance, if you call something a problem from the beginning, it changes your entire physiology. If you think about it, and if you look back at your situation, every time you name something a problem, it basically creates the mindset that this is going to be something that is difficult. This is going to be something that might be even impossible. This is something that is associated with failure. So you see, all these things just by giving something a name. By giving something a name, you change all these things. And we're very, very fast in giving things names, and in particular, calling things problems. And given these implications that I just told you about, it's quite dangerous to do. See, in big companies and corporations, they identified this, and what they do is they try to encourage their people to come up with a so-called problem statement. They say, look, don't go and do things about things that might not be a problem. Define the problem really in its entirety and very, very specifically. What is really the problem? And if you look at this, at the end of the day, originally problems are actually just situations that the company might want to change. So to give you an example, a company might have struggle with the fact that people do not have enough access to their medication. And so, that's not a problem because it's not a problem to people. People don't even know this medication exists. But it is a situation that the company wants to change. So summing up, this first point is that when I said the problem is only a problem if you call it a problem, it's really very important that you really say and define, is this something that I can call a problem? Or is it just a simple situation that I want to change? Number two, a problem is only a problem if you surrender to the problem. If you decide not to do something about it, then it's a problem. Because the problem that you don't do anything about is going to remain a problem and it's going to get worse. If you have financial issues and you're, for instance, in debt, then this is going to stay like this if you don't do anything about it. But look at this. If you instead decide to do something about it and you say, I'm going to tackle the problem, then all of a sudden it becomes a project. Because then all you have to do is you create a roadmap, you create a couple of to-dos, and then you have an exact plan of how to overcome that problem. Let me give you a couple of examples on this particular later point, which is about the do something about the problem. When I talk to people, I get a lot, for instance, things like, oh, I have a problem, I don't make enough money. And then I go to these people and I say, well, first, you don't make money. Banks make money. Banks print money on paper out of nothing. But you earn money. And so my question to these people would be, so how do you earn money? You earn money by adding value. So what have you done about adding value? Have you looked at the value that you add in your company And so to analyze if what you want to have as compensation is actually worth what you're offering. So see, this is the kind of thinking that should go behind it. Another thing is people come and say, oh, I have a problem. I have so many things to do. And then I say, okay, so what are you busy about? Because chances are people have forgotten all these things they have to do. And they don't understand, they don't have the overview of the things they have to do. And all they remember is that it was a lot. So what they remember and took over these years is, oh, I have a lot to do and I've always had a lot to do, so I still always have a lot to do. But if they would actually sit down and look at their task and create an overall picture and differentiate the tasks that are urgent versus important, look at the things that need to be done now versus that need to be done for later, then all of a sudden this is not really a problem because it is a very clearly identified thing that you need to tackle, and you will have even a roadmap and tasks to do that. So that was number two, that a problem is only a problem if you surrender to it and you don't do anything about it. The third thing is to look at the other side of problems. So problems are always looked at negatively because, again, I believe it's because you call them problems, and problem, the naming is associated so heavily with something that is so debilitating and blocking people. But problems are also a good thing. Look, there's three things that I could share with you that I find are on the good side of problems. So a problem is an opportunity for you to change something. A problem is always a signal. Okay? You can think of the signal coming from a higher source, like God, if you're religious, or you can think of it like karma, or you can think of this as random. It doesn't matter where it comes from. The reality is that this is a signal, and it tells you that you've been hitting your head against the wall, and maybe you should consider changing your approach, or changing even the way that you looked at the whole thing in the first place. So it's an opportunity for you to change something that is not going well. Number two is it gives you an opportunity to define the person you want to become. You know, the current problem is a problem for you right now. It's a problem for the person that you are right now, for that draft version of you, for that work in progress version of you. It's not a problem maybe for the person 10 years from now that you could be, because the person 10 years from now might solve it. So if you sit back and say, how would I tackle this problem as an ideal me? What would an ideal me do it? How would an ideal me solve this problem? And this allows you to think a little bit outside of your current situation and even define the person you want to become. And this is big because people love problem solvers, and this is going to put them much, much higher in the profile. Your profile will get much higher. Number three, it allows you to grow. This is linked to what I said before, that if you don't do anything about it, you are not going to get the problem go away. But if you do something about it and you take little baby steps to solve the problem, not only will you solve the problem as it is right now, even more, you will actually grow and you will be able to tackle even bigger problems. And so you will become, with problem after problem after problem, you will become the biggest problem solver that you can imagine for yourself, and you will get the self-confidence that you need in order to not be afraid of problems anymore. Now, these three things are the ones that I wanted to share with you. So number one, as I said, it's really be very, very conscious and careful of what you really call a problem in the first place. Naming something is defining it, and it blocks the creative thinking, creative mind that you have in yourself in order to move things forward. The number two was you need to do something about it. You will not fear problems as soon as you put an agenda behind it and a roadmap behind it in order to tackle this. And number three is look at problems as what they also are. Yes, they might be debilitating and a burden on your shoulders right now, but it is an opportunity for you to change, to look at other ways of doing things, to become a better person and to grow personally. As a bonus, I wanted to offer you a small framework, 5 steps how you tackle problems in case they occupy your mind and you can't get rid of them. Okay? 5 simple steps that you can go and get some peace of mind. Step number 1. Step number 1 is if you get these problems and thoughts in the middle of the night, feel free to ignore them. Unless it's a big health issue and you can't breathe at night, then maybe you have to call a doctor or something. But if it is a normal problem, a stupid thought that comes into your mind, feel free to ignore it. Our body has the immense capability to create immense problems in the middle of the night out of where there are none. You know, I'm sure this is related to some hormones and internal transmitters and and modulators and all these chemical substances that are going inside of us, that actually things appear much, much worse in the middle of the night than they are normally. And you will have experienced this as well. I mean, think about a situation where you were in the middle of the night. I can give you my examples of the same. I've been there as well. You are lying, sweating in bed, thinking anxiously about things you might have forgotten. You stand up, you take thousands of notes all over the place, on your hand, on the wall. And then you wake up, you freshen up, you see the daylight, you brush your teeth. All of a sudden, these problems are not big problems anymore. And you are in a complete different state of mind than you were when you're lying in your bed in the middle of the night. So again, if these things come in the middle of the night, please feel free to ignore them. It is something that is not the reality, and you should be aware that this is not the reality. Number 2, you should try and separate the urgency from the problem that you perceive you have. So this is another big, big thing. You know, very, very often the only reason why we perceive something to be a big, big problem is because there is a certain urgency to this. Oh my God, I need to do this now. I need to get the presentation tomorrow. I need to book the flight now, or otherwise the price will increase double-fold. If you separate this urgency matter from the actual problem, this will give you some peace of mind and some capacity to access the problem in the first place. And this brings me to point and step number 3, that you take a step back and now with a calmer view, accept the problem and address the problem. So what you're going to do here in the third step is that you look at the problem, define it really, what is it here that I'm really afraid of, and look at the consequences and probabilities of it. This is the very, very important piece, because what often happens, and you will have experienced this many, many times, is that your mind plays completely tricks on you. You start with a very, very simple thingy, like for instance, I couldn't book the flight, and your mind overblows this and goes from I couldn't book the flight to I couldn't book the flight, I will not be able to go to my in-laws will talk back to my wife will divorce me, I will lose the kids, I will die under the bridge poor without anything to eat. So this is what happens naturally. You know, our mind, don't trust your mind in this regard, because this is something that is not reality, and this is something that is exaggerating. You need to take the step back, you need to look at the problem, and you need to assess what are the consequences, what is the worst that can happen here really, and look at the probabilities that this really, really can happen. Now you're calm. Now you have assessed the problem. Now we go to step number 4. Step number 4 means, what can I do about it? Is it me who can do something about it? Or actually, is it something that is an environmental issue? So for instance, let's take again the same example with a flight. Can I just, go to the website and book the flight? Is that all I need to do in order to get that peace of mind? Or maybe is the website down because of any technical issue on the company side? So see, there's some things that you can do, something that you can't do. So this is the step where you actually assess what are you able to do, and then start by doing some more baby steps in order to resolve that. And step number 5 is, no matter how much you do, no matter how much you plan, things will go wrong. This is the lessons of life. There will always be something that you will not have considered, things that will go wrong. And it is okay. You need to accept that things will go wrong, and you need to just embrace that things will go wrong. Okay? If things go wrong, don't be mad at it, don't struggle with it, just accept it and just take the lesson. Because after all, that's what we're here to do. We need to take the lesson and to learn so that next time we can do it much, much better. So here's your 5 steps framework in order to tackle the problem. Number 1 was just ignore it if it comes in the middle of the night. Number 2 was to dissociate and separate the urgency from the actual problem. Number 3 was to look at the problem and look at the consequences, what can go wrong, and the probabilities. To just readjust your mind to what actual the reality is versus what is in your head. Number 4 was to look into what you actually can do, if there's something that you can do or that is just an environmental issue. And number 5 is accept that things will go wrong, because even if things go wrong, there is always a lesson for you to learn. So thank you very, very much for watching this. Thank you for watching this until the very end. If you liked it, subscribe and you will get the weekly dose of this information and insights that hopefully will help you tackle problems in this case better. So if you feel there is somebody who needs to see this, please feel free to share this. Otherwise, thank you very much, and until next week, all the best.